All right, let's talk about the different compatibility matches for Sagittarius. And this is a really somber video for me because this completes the compatibility tier ranking series. This is the very last one, so it's too bad. I had a lot of fun ranking these, but there are many other ways we can rank the signs as well. So let me know. You've made a lot of good suggestions. I have a lot of ideas. But yeah, this is a fun and easy kind of video for me to make, so I'm so glad that y'all have enjoyed these. Anyway, I think Sagittarius, others are going to enjoy how warm and generous they are. Sagittarius can be very fun. I think they're one of the most fun signs. But that being said, because they are so optimistic, there is definitely a reckless side to Sagittarius. Sagittarius can be a bit disorganized and, kind of crazy or belligerent at times. So I think, they are so freedom loving. Sagittarius is going to need a sign that is, receptive to that and understanding of their freedom. But Sagittarius is very passionate as well. They can be very romantic. So, let's kind of get into it and just see how this plays out. So we're going to go through the signs in alphabetical order as usual. And before I continue, I always have to mention, please, if you are assessing compatibility, look at Venus, Mars, and the descendant. All three of those, we are attracted to the signs of our Venus, Mars, and descendant. So let's say someone has Sun in Sagittarius, but their Venus, Mars, and descendant are all in Scorpio. They're going to be really attracted to Scorpio and other water signs. And so you can almost disregard the compatibility of Sagittarius for that person. Of course, it does play into a larger scheme of things. But again, Venus, Mars, and the descendant really dominate things in terms of attraction and romantic compatibility. And I wanted to say too, I don't know why, like whenever I do videos or polls, everyone assumes I'm talking about sun signs when, you can approach it this way and look at sun signs. But when I talk about the signs, I'm referring to the signs. If I was referring to sun signs, I would say sun sign. I don't know why that's I guess it's like a pop astrology thing, but here, this isn't just for sun placements. This could be maybe rising or Venus, like really any placement. I'm not referring to any specific placement. That's kind of the whole point. Anyway, let's start out with Aquarius. So Sagittarius and Aquarius, these signs are two signs apart. They are sextile, so it's a very harmonious dynamic. I always say signs that are sextile to each other have enough in common to understand each other and, get along. They have similar needs, similar ways of expressing themselves, but they are different enough for this dynamic to be mutually complementary. They're different enough for this to be interesting and passionate. So, I think this is really beautiful. I think Sagittarius and Aquarius have a lot in common. I do think Sagittarius is slightly on the more kind of passionate side. Sagittarius is the centaur, so they are, half animal, half beast. They can be very intellectual and analytical, but they're also very emotional, passionate, instinctual, etc. Aquarius is definitely more on the cerebral side. They're more intellectual. I would say Sagittarius and Aquarius are two of the most they're two of the more detached signs compared to the rest of the zodiac. So they'll be able to have like really deep conversations, philosophical conversations, long conversations. They'll enjoy kind of picking each other's brains and learning from one another. But I do think both Sagittarius and Aquarius can be very in touch with their instincts as well. Even though Aquarius is very detached and not very comfortable, expressing a lot of emotion, I do think there's a very instinctual nature to Aquarius at the same time. So I think, both of these signs can be very cerebral and philosophical, but they can both be a little bit belligerent as well. They can be, party animals. They like to get wild. They like to get rowdy. So they just have so much in common. I think even the differences really help support this combination because Aquarius needs Aquarius needs signs that are more comfortable being emotionally vulnerable because Aquarius is generally not. And Sagittarius is very kind of gung ho, like they wear their hearts on their sleeves, as they say. So I think that pairing will work really beautifully, and both can be leaders, but in different ways. Sagittarius is more engaged and like physically active, I guess, if that makes sense, like physically involved. Whereas Aquarius is a little bit more, I don't know, independent. I mean, both are independent, but Aquarius kind of does their own thing, if that makes sense. So Sagittarius would be kind of the instigator, and they'd be more active, I guess you could say. But Aquarius might be the leader in the sense that they're very strong-willed. But both are strong-willed. It's just kind of in different ways. One more thing about that I have to say. So Sagittarius is one of the more independent signs, like I said, and I do think that it makes sense to pair, two fellow independent signs. But as one commenter did point out, signs like if two people or two signs are too independent, how are they going to have a relationship, right? Like there's going to be no one, getting them, there's going to be no force like combining them or getting them close together. So that is something we can think about with Sagittarius and Aquarius. They may be too independent where each are completely doing their own thing. On the other hand, they may really respect and enjoy the freedom that each of them, give each other as well. So kind of just depends. Okay, next is Aries. So same thing applies that I was just talking about. Aries and Sagittarius are very independent, so that can either be a pro or a con. These signs they trine one another. It's a 120-degree aspect, so they have a lot in common. They're the same element. They're both fire signs, so they're both fiery, passionate, very engaging, and usually they're very physically active. Both can be competitive. Both can be maybe a little bit self-centered at times. Both are very spontaneous, impulsive, a little bit more on the reckless side. So I almost am slightly worried. We're combining the energy of Jupiter with Sagittarius and the energy of Mars with Aries. And whenever you add Mars plus Jupiter, it's kind of like, I just imagine throwing like a match into a tornado, and then for some reason the tornado is just like engulfed in flames, if that makes sense. Like the match would be like Mars, and the tornado, the for whatever reason this tornado is flammable. That would be like Jupiter, if that makes sense. But a different way of putting it is, Mars is the instigator. It's the most kind of passionate energy, most intense energy, and Jupiter expands things. So Sagittarius and Aries together, I think they can have a lot of fun. They might have too much fun though. Like, who is being responsible here? Of the two, I think Sagittarius would actually generally be more responsible. Of course, there can always be exceptions to that. But yeah, that does concern me. Maybe that's my Virgo side speaking. Like, I don't know how that would work in the long term. However, both do have they have so many similarities. They have similar ways of expressing themselves, similar wants, similar needs. Both being so passionate, both are such passionate signs. I think that can make for, a very passionate dynamic. I do generally view energies that are very similar to each other as usually being more friends than lovers. And here in these videos, I'm talking about romantic compatibility. But again, because they're both so passionate, maybe they would be both friends and they could be more as well. So I guess this would be best match. I'm not as in love with Aries for Sagittarius as I am like maybe Aquarius. I like a little bit more difference to make things interesting so they can learn from each other. I don't think Sagittarius and Aries would learn a whole lot from each other necessarily, but they may just really enjoy each other's company. One key difference is that Aries is not as analytical as Sagittarius is. Like, both are fiery, both are passionate, impulsive, spontaneous, etc. But the difference is Sagittarius also has that intellectual side, and I think that might be intriguing for Aries. Another difference is that, because Sagittarius does think a lot more, they're kind of an overthinking sign. That means that Aries is going to be a little bit more bold, a little bit more decisive. I know Sagittarius can be bold as well and very confident and kind of cocky, but I do think Aries is slightly more strong-willed of the two and would generally be the leader. So I think, those little differences would actually help this combination as well. Next is Cancer. So Cancer and Sagittarius form a quincunx, which is an awkward aspect. It's 150 degrees or 5 signs. Yes. I had to think about that for a second. But, whenever you have two signs that quincunx, it's almost like they're exactly opposite, except one off from being opposite. So exactly opposite Sagittarius would be Gemini. So the signs on either side of Gemini are quincunx to Sagittarius. So that would be Taurus and Cancer. So generally speaking, Taurus and Cancer are going to have at the least in common with Sagittarius compared to any other sign. Cancer is cardinal water, Sagittarius is mutable fire. Cancer is the beginning of summer, Sagittarius is the end of fall. So there's nothing in common here. Sagittarius is yang or masculine, whereas Cancer is yin or feminine. A huge difference you can see is that Cancer has to do with the home and Sagittarius has to do with long distance travel. So how is that supposed to work? Cancer is a homebody. They need lots of time to recharge at home. While Sagittarius is the opposite. They need adventure. They need newness. Cancer wants familiarity. Sagittarius wants novelty and like completely, new experiences. So how is that going to work? Both are passionate. Both do kind of wear their hearts on their sleeves, so I think they could, maybe appreciate each other's warmth, I guess. But I think Cancer is going to feel totally out of control with Sagittarius. Cancer wants a more close knit relationship. They want security. They want consistency. Sagittarius, again, Sagittarius wants adventure. They don't care so much about like consistency. They want things to be interesting and exciting. So they're all their needs are like fundamentally opposed, if that makes sense. I did want to say there is a Jupiter connection here. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and is exalted in Cancer. So both do have a certain like life is a journey kind of mentality, if that makes sense. But again, that's kind of the only bridge I can connect between these two signs. Everything else is it just seems fundamentally different. One last thing about that too. Cancer is very sensitive and they're a little bit easily offended, and Sagittarius is very bold, very just direct, like, I'm just gonna say it as it is and I don't care about your feelings. So I could see how Sagittarius may feel pent up and like controlled by Cancer's sensitivities, and Cancer may feel offended and hurt. They may feel like Sagittarius is not considerate of others' feelings. And then lastly, Cancer will feel like Sagittarius is reckless, inconsistent, irresponsible. Sagittarius is going to feel like Cancer is boring. Like I said, maybe controlling. They'll kind of like provoke each other's insecurities, I think. So it's going to take either a lot of mutual compromise and understanding, etc., or or there's got to be some other factor in the charts that is attracting these signs. Some other, like I said, maybe Venus, Mars, the descendant, etc. Okay, next let's look at Capricorn. So Capricorn and Sagittarius are side by side, so that means they are semi-sextile, 30-degree aspect, and signs that are side by side are it's usually an awkward energy because they're so dramatically different. And I always compare it to sibling. It's the energy of siblings, in my personal opinion. So siblings generally come from the same environment. They come from a similar place in time, usually, right? At least a similar era. So they may have some of the same kind of worldviews, if that makes sense. But when it comes to their individual personalities, those are still going to be dramatically different. And just like siblings, they may get along really famously for a little while, but then it's very unstable. They'll get along great, and then they'll be fighting, and then they'll get along again. And I know those are huge generalizations, but that's just energy. Those are dynamics that I've observed in siblings. And that's how I feel side-by-side signs are. Sagittarius and Capricorn are just so dramatically different. I think the main difference is Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so it's all about expansion. Sagittarius wants to say yes to everything. It's so optimistic. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and it's pretty much the opposite. It's much more about conserving energy, and it's a much stricter kind of energy. Very dry, very Capricorn wants to be very much more in control of everything, and Capricorn is one of the most pessimistic signs as well. So again, we have a dynamic where Sagittarius will feel like Capricorn is a stick in the mud. You're too controlling, too rigid, too boring, too serious. And Capricorn may feel like Sagittarius is reckless, irresponsible, out of control, belligerent, inconsistent, etc. Capricorn likes to plan everything and be very strategic, and Sagittarius is one of the most spontaneous signs. So I'm actually going to rank this worst match as well. It just seems like such an awkward energy. Both are known for their senses of humor, both Sagittarius and Capricorn. But that being said, their senses of humor are very different. Sagittarius has more of like I feel like they call it like slapstick comedy, like more like in your face and just like silly and kind of wild. Capricorn's more of like a sophisticated, like dry kind of sense of humor. They often have more of like a dark sense of humor. So it's just, I don't know. It's completely different. I do think Sagittarius and Capricorn could be an excellent like business partnership, because if you combine Sagittarius's wild ideas and their energy, their enthusiasm, their charisma, and you combine that with Capricorn's foresight, strategy, dedication, etc., you can have a very powerful, kind of match on your hands, powerful duo, powerful dynamic. But again, it's going to take a lot of like mutual understanding, respect, and communication for these two signs to work together. Okay, next we have Sagittarius and Gemini. So this is, in my opinion, the best match for Sagittarius, because Sagittarius, although they can overthink things and they can be a little shy at times, I think Sagittarius wants to be the leader, and Gemini's gonna love kind of being the the partner, the sidekick of Sagittarius. Generally speaking, Gemini doesn't mind someone to conform to and kind of follow. And both these signs, they are directly opposite, so it's 180 degrees. It's a face-off. Oppositions are intense, but I do think Gemini and Sagittarius, of all the different opposing pairs, of all the 6 different opposing pairs of signs, I think Sagittarius and Gemini get along the easiest, and that's because they are both yang and mutable. So they're both, mutable traits mean that they're both open-minded and kind of adaptable, open to energies that are different from themselves. They're both focused on learning. And being yang, that means that they're more spontaneous, more active. So because they're both a combination of being active, spontaneous, as well as open-minded and adaptable, I think that just sets them up for being extremely open to each other's differences. They really actually have a lot in common. Both are intellectual. As I said, they want to learn. Both get bored easily. They want adventure and stimulation. Both can have like really interesting and complex, conversations, but they can also both be very silly. They're both youthful signs as well. So it's just, I don't know. It's about as perfect a combination as you can get, in my opinion. I always mention how I think fire and air signs really respect and admire each other. Air signs admire fire signs because they're so bold and confident and decisive and so charismatic, so passionate. Fire signs admire air signs because they're so cool and nothing gets to them, nothing bothers them. Fire signs can be easily riled up, so they kind of complete each other. What each of them lacks, the other one has, and I think both would be open to those differences. I'm really ranking this in an extreme way so far, but I think that's because Sagittarius is an extreme sign. I think I'm gonna bump Aries down, because I know Sagittarius and Aries are an awesome pair. It's such an easy dynamic, but I don't know. I like pairing. I guess I like pairing fire signs with air signs better than putting a fire sign with another fire sign. Speaking of which, let's talk about Leo. So Leo, just like Aries, Leo is a fellow fire sign. Leo trines Sagittarius, so it's a similar dynamic, and this is a 120-degree aspect. It's the energy of Jupiter. And so Jupiter is not only associated with trines, but Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, and then we're also involving the sun, because sun rules Leo. So it's a lot of like warm, super optimistic energy here. I'm debating whether Leo or Aries has more in common with Sagittarius, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. I would say Leo and Sagittarius are they're even more optimistic than Aries is. Like, it's just such a feel-good energy. I think both Leo and Sagittarius they correlate to times of the year that are associated with like holidays and celebrations. Leo's the middle of summer and Sagittarius is the end of fall. So both have to do with celebration and, just relaxing, like eat, drink, and be merry type of energy. So I think they'll have tons of fun together. Leo is a little bit more stable than Sagittarius, so I think that can be a good influence. And Sagittarius may be slightly more adventurous than Leo. Leo's pretty adventurous, though. Both these signs really want to have a good time. They want to have fun. Both are confident, passionate, decisive, and because both are so passionate, I really do think fire signs have like some of the strongest sexual appetites, if that makes sense. So I do think because of that, this, I would normally lean toward this being more of a friendship, but because they are so passionate, I could see how it would easily be something more than that as well. So I really don't see any downsides to Leo. So I don't know, maybe I'm gonna put Aries back up here. I mean, there's nothing wrong with these connections to make me bump them down. So I don't know. Next is Sagittarius and Libra. So this is a little bit more complicated. I think before I knew as much about astrology, I thought that Sagittarius and Libra would be a great match. We're mixing a fire sign with an air sign. What's not to love? I already mentioned how fire and air signs tend to admire each other. But here, I don't think this actually really works. It can work. It can be a decent connection, but generally speaking, Libra wants someone really strong willed, and Libra is an overthinking sign. I always say how, of the 12 signs, I think Libra most wants a sign or a person that is different from themselves. Like, most of us can handle being with someone else who has similar astrology to ourselves, and we may actually enjoy that. I don't think Libra generally enjoys that. I think, so what I'm getting at is, even though Sagittarius is a more strong-willed energy, it's fiery. Sagittarius can be cocky and bold, and Libra tends to like those strong personalities. Sagittarius is also mutable. They're intellectual. Sagittarius is another overthinking sign. So I think it's actually the similarities that make this connection difficult romantically, or maybe not even difficult necessarily. I just don't see the attraction being there for either one. Like, both are kind of overthinking signs. Libra doesn't. I don't think Libra is romantically attracted to another sign that is an overthinker. Generally speaking, Libra wants someone more just straightforward, black and white. What you see is what you get. So that's why I usually pair Libra with either Aries or Leo, or even like fixed signs or certain cardinal signs. More kind of simplistic signs. I think. I don't know, Sagittarius is too multifaceted, too complex. I don't think that's what Libra is actually looking for. So that being said, I think I'm gonna put them in the average category, which is kind of weird because a fire and air, what's not to love? But I don't hate it. They do have, they are a sextile, a sextiling pair, and both, I think, do prefer to view the glass half full. Libra's ruled by Venus, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so both are like very charismatic and very warm. What else? Both enjoy, like, both are a little bit hedonistic. They like to indulge and have great experiences and be very sensual. But another thing too is that Libra really wants. I think Libra admires personalities that are a little bit more like socially flattering, if that makes sense. And Sagittarius can be a little bit of a mess socially. They can be very charismatic, but they can also be disorganized. They can be a little bit awkward at times too. So I don't think Libra would enjoy that. And Sagittarius can be so blunt, which I don't know. I could see Libra enjoying that, but I could also see Libra being a little bit turned off by that. Sagittarius is just so unpredictable, and Libra is such a conservative sign. Maybe that's a key point here. Libra is so conservative, and Sagittarius is so reckless. I'm kind of just questioning, though. I love pairing Libra with Aries, so why is Libra with Sagittarius such a dramatically worse combination? I think it's just because Sagittarius is intellectual, so that would make them more in the friend zone. I'm gonna go with that as my final answer. Okay, next is Pisces. So this one's interesting. We haven't gotten a lot of square. I don't think we've gotten either of the signs that square Sagittarius yet. So I always say I like pairing signs that square each other together because it adds a little bit of tension, which, yes, certain energies, certain people are not going to enjoy that tension, but tension isn't necessarily a deal breaker. When you have signs that square each other, it means that they see each other, they understand each other. It's just that they're very different, So with Sagittarius and Pisces, they may not always agree, but I think both are so open-minded that they will be open to each other's differences. And both Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter, so both are very warm, very like open-minded, and both enjoy, like, I don't know. I feel like both of these signs are potentially very like wise. They want that like deep emotion, and both have such an adventurous personality. They view life as a journey. So yeah, I think this actually, I think this actually works better than Libra, which is kind of weird. Because by aspect, you would think signs that sextile each other generally work better than signs that square each other. But there is some nuance here. There are some exceptions, as usual. Sagittarius and Pisces, it works pretty well. It's kind of like pairing Gemini and Virgo. They are square each other, but they have that shared planetary rulership. So the same is true here. I think I don't know. Plus just them being so open-minded. Yes, they are different. They won't always agree, but I think they can be open to those differences. Next is Sagittarius with itself, which I feel like this would be interesting, but I don't think I've known many Sagittarius couples. For me, it's mostly been Aries, Virgo. I feel like there's one other one that I'm forgetting. Haven't noticed a whole lot of Sagittarius relationships. I mean, as always, when you're combining two of the same signs, you're gonna have similar needs, similar desires, similar ways of expressing yourselves. So that all is very well and good. I think maybe the key here is that Sagittarius is so open. They want to learn. They want to explore. I think Sagittarius is one of the signs that actually would prefer being with someone who's a little bit different from themselves. So if you just put them with their own sign, where's the adventure? Like, yes, they can both adventure together. They can be partners in crime, partners in adventure. Um, but I don't know. This isn't going to be it's not always as stimulating being with your own sign because all their secrets already. You know how they work. There's not as much like discovery, if that makes sense. It is an easier dynamic, but it's also potentially less passionate. So I would say average. I would rank this like on par with Libra, I guess. I don't hate it. I think it could definitely work. I think Sagittarius and Sagittarius could be great friends. They could be great like partners. But yeah, my only criticism is Sagittarius. Sagittarius is multifaceted. They don't mind someone else who's a little bit different from themselves. Okay, next is Scorpio. So these signs are side by side. So again, it's that like sibling dynamic that I talked about earlier. They are dramatically different. I do enjoy kind of comparing and contrasting Scorpio and Sagittarius because at first glance they seem completely different. Scorpio is, I would say, probably the most pessimistic sign, and Sagittarius is probably the most optimistic sign. Sagittarius is very freedom loving, while Scorpio wants security and consistency. So it's another one of those dynamics, kind of like Cancer or Capricorn. Scorpio is going to feel like Sagittarius is out of control, reckless, unpredictable. Scorpio feels so deeply they can't afford to emotionally invest in someone that's not going to be there. And Sagittarius just lives life on a whim, kind of. So that could be threatening to Scorpio. So Scorpio might feel like Sagittarius is not just reckless, but like unfaithful, if that makes sense. And Sagittarius might feel like Scorpio is controlling and, again, like too serious, too rigid. Sagittarius may feel boxed in by Scorpio, and Scorpio may feel abandoned by Sagittarius. However, there are some interesting similarities, though. So both Scorpio and Sagittarius are some of the more extreme signs. Like, they want all or nothing. Like, if they do something, they're going to do it 100%, 110%, right? They're going to be the best at what they do. They're both very passionate signs as well. Both are very inquisitive, very, like, investigative, if that makes sense. This makes me think of the sign of, like, a fucus, which I don't even want to start that whole conversation. I shouldn't have said that because it could be a contentious conversation in astrology. But if you look at the traits of a fucus, though, that it's kind of the bridge between Scorpio and Sagittarius. Like, so anyway, that's why I thought of that. But so yeah, I think these two signs could have some really intense fights. I think they could be very intense in other ways as well. I think this would be very passionate, very up and down. Part of me wants to put them. I'm gonna put Scorpio in the awkward category. Like, I think this could be the worst relationship, but but they may be interested in each other's passion. Both of these signs I do think lean on the more feeling side, but both are very intellectual as well. Both are very analytical. So yeah, so I could see how this might be very passionate. It could be very interesting for sure. Next is Taurus. So remember what I said about Cancer. Taurus forms the same aspect to Sagittarius. It's a quincunx, 150 degrees, 5 signs apart. So they are extremely different. Again, like Taurus is the most consistent, the most reliable, the most just even keel, and Sagittarius is one of the most dramatic, unpredictable, wild, adventurous signs. So, how is this gonna work? They have different lifestyles, they have different approaches to things, they have different needs. Like Taurus really just needs to feel grounded and secure, like they don't want things to change too much, and Sagittarius is the opposite. They need change, they need adventure. um and it's kind of weird, like I think both these signs can be a little bit stubborn, but in very different ways. Both are ruled by benefics. Taurus is ruled by Venus, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So both are a little bit optimistic. Both can be very indulgent and very sensual. Fire and earth signs can enjoy each other sometimes. Like fire burns the earth, which could be a bad thing or a good thing, if that makes sense. But this just seems like an awkward dynamic to me. I think Taurus usually prefers other, like, very strong-willed, kind of consistent energies. And Sagittarius is sort of strong-willed, but it's constantly flickering. It's like, Sagittarius can be a spark, or they can be a wildfire, and everywhere in between. So I don't know if Taurus is necessarily open to that level of, like, that range, that nuance, that diversity and variety. That all comes at the cost of not being so consistent and not being so kind of simple, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think this would be one of the hardest combinations for Sagittarius. I think that would be very difficult. Next is Virgo and Sagittarius. I actually know a lot of Virgo Sagittarius couples, with sun signs or what have you. This one's interesting. These signs square each other 90 degrees, 3 signs apart. So they're both mutable, but one is earth, one is fire, right? So again, signs that square each other, that's such a strong aspect. They see each other, they understand each other. They're not going to agree, though. Just because you understand each other doesn't mean you agree. So Virgo and Sagittarius may get on each other's nerves. There may be a little bit of tension there. But like I always say, tension may not be a deal breaker. These signs may enjoy that tension. Both Virgo and Sagittarius are very direct. That is one commonality. They're very just honest and, like, I don't know, direct. Like what you see is what you get kind of thing. Both value authenticity, so I do think they would appreciate that in one another. A huge difference that may be annoying for both of them is that Virgo is one of the most, like, controlled signs. They want everything to be, like, thought out and planned and controlled, and a Virgo tends to be more they're not always organized, but they put thought into every little thing. Like, even if they have a cluttered room, they know where everything is because they've put thought into where everything is, if that makes sense. So and Sagittarius is kind of the opposite. They just are, let's just let the chips fall where they may. Sagittarius is more spontaneous and just go with the flow. So I think on a domestic level, Sagittarius might be a little bit more cluttered or disorganized, and that may annoy Virgo, which is so focused on efficiency. So Sagittarius might feel like Virgo is controlling, too serious, too maybe boring. And Virgo may feel like Sagittarius is reckless, irresponsible. It's kind of a lot of the same things that I said about Capricorn, Cancer, Taurus. All of these signs value stability, and they have kind of like high standards for everything. And Sagittarius doesn't want that. They want freedom. They want to just, like, live life on the edge and have the experience, the journey, etc. And that's just so different from these more, like, introverted signs, I think. Something interesting, though, is that there is a centaur connection with both of these, because Sagittarius is symbolized as the centaur. Virgo is, of course, symbolized as the maiden or the virgin, but Chiron also, Chiron is actually a centaur, and Chiron, I wouldn't say Chiron rules over Virgo, but Chiron is associated with Virgo. Let's say it that way. And real quick about the centaurs in like ancient mythology, the centaurs were said to be generally belligerent, but there was a minority of centaurs that were, refined and sophisticated. They were scholars, they were tutors. So Sagittarius is more on the belligerent side, although there is that kind of intellectual side with Sagittarius as well. And Virgo, Chiron in particular was a centaur that was one of the more refined ones, very like cerebral, and he was a healer and all this, and he was more like somber and kind of like, I don't know, sad, if that makes sense, if that's accurate to say. So I don't know what to make of that exactly. Centaurs are metaphorical because they're half human and half beast, so they are both rational, analytical, intellectual, as well as instinctual and emotional. And of these two, I definitely think Virgo is the more rational and analytical one. But Virgo is deeply sensitive as well. I do think Virgo is deeply emotional. It's just that they like detach from it. They keep it controlled. They keep it within. So I think, another difference here too is that Virgo is one of the signs least comfortable with being emotionally vulnerable. And Sagittarius is one of the most comfortable being emotionally vulnerable. So opposites may kind of attract. Sagittarius may enjoy how grounding Virgo is, and Virgo may enjoy how adventurous Sagittarius is. So even despite all their differences, I do think this is a challenging dynamic, but I think this would be one of the more preferred relationships, though. Sometimes I think certain signs are more up for the challenge or up for certain levels of tension. Like they may not mind that. They may actually enjoy the challenge. They may be, willing to work it out and to compromise. And I do think mutable signs in general tend to be more open to those types of things. So that's where I definitely don't hate Pisces and Virgo for Sagittarius. I actually kind of like them. I think it's an interesting match. I think those signs would be open to that. Yeah, that's my take on the compatibility of Sagittarius. This one was surprisingly easy. I wasn't sure because I know Sagittarius can be very direct and straightforward, but they can also be so multifaceted and complex. So honestly, I wasn't expecting this to be that easy. I feel like most signs are very either very open to Sagittarius energy or very closed off. I do think it's interesting how so many people that I've talked to say, "Oh, I don't know any Sagittariuses," which it is one of the times of year where less people are born with that sun sign. I myself, though, I have descendant and north node in Sagittarius, so I have known probably more people with Sagittarius sun than any other sun sign. So I'm very familiar with this particular energy. But anyway, let me know what you think of my little ranking, my little video, and if you want a reading, definitely hit me up. Check out my website, or you can email me as well if you'd like to. All of that information is always in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.